Jackson. But it was a very strange thing to.
Was it? I mean, it sounds like Randolph was mostly Irish back then, or
Heavily Irish.
heavily. Yeah.
Heavily Irish, but with the tail end of the Yankees.
Yeah.
Tail end of them.
Where did all the? Who was out here? Do you know who? I mean, it was originally obviously Yankees.
It was all originally Yankee, yeah.
But it was underpopulated, so I mean.
It was underpopulated, and then when the factories came in, they evidently, I mean, this was before my time.
Yeah.
Hell, I figured that I just came yesterday, but I always used to worry, now how could an Irishman get elected to the House of Representatives in 1885 when they hadn't finished burning the convent in Charlestown, you know? Well, the point of the story, I've forgotten, Raymond McGarrigle told me about it. Raymond McGarrigle went to Columbia. There's another guy who went to school in the 20s. And I said to him, I don't understand how my grandfather could have been the first one in the House of Representatives. He says, he wasn't, my father was. I said, geez, so, hello? Hi. Yeah, can I call you right back? Yeah. All right? Okay, bye. And I said, well, I don't understand how that would be possible.
Yeah.
You know? And he says, well, it's a question of numbers. He says, how did they get an Irish mayor? How did Honey Fitz and so? Honey Fitz was served in the House of Representatives with my grandfather. But that's how they got elected, because all of the workforce was all
Irish.
Was all Irish.
Right.
So they elected their own,
Yeah.
which was quite interesting, because they say, I mean, you know, there was
Curly and all
awful
that.
lot of bigotry and all that sort of stuff. But all of those people disappeared. I've often wondered whatever happened to them.
Who?
All the old Yankees.
Oh.
They all seemed to just die out. They had no children, I don't think.
Yeah.
They just seemed to die out. It's a
Either that or
strange
there
thing.
weren't that many of them in the first place.
Well, that's true. There weren't that many.
You know?
That's true. There weren't that many. And the aristocracy then was beginning, what you might call the beginning of another aristocracy of people were Irish. The
Yeah.
Brennans were Irish. The Doyles in Brockton were Irish. It was all shifting over.
Right.
The biggest house on the main street, was a beautiful, beautiful mansion, was the old Brennan house. That was Irish.
Yeah.
And the others were beginning to either disappear, go away someplace, or whatever. But all the original names are all gone now. They just don't exist.
I don't understand how. I mean, Dad's told me about how your father did 85 different jobs, from, you know,
Yeah.
from school bus driver to truant officer to singing in church to you know, everything like that. And how did he afford to send a kid to college back then? Although the 20s weren't the worst time, I guess.
Well, he had help.
Yeah.
He could get maiden aunts who were interested in.
Oh, I see. That's
Most kids who went to college had a maiden aunt or a parish priest.
Yeah.
You could even talk to any kid who went to BC in the 30s,
yeah.
and you get the same story.
Because most of them.
The fathers had all they could do to do what they did. Plus, they weren't particularly. They may have been, or they may not have been particularly interested, but somebody was interested.
Right.
Somebody give them that extra push, and
Yeah.
that's the way it happened.
Yeah.
And, hell, little kids that probably went for nothing,
Yeah.
just because somebody lifted the phone and
Yeah.
called Father so-and-so. You couldn't do that today, of course. But
Well, I don't know if that's true or not.
well, you might get a break or so today, but
Yeah. Well, not for the full ride, but.
no. I mean, you can be a well-known grad today and not get your kiddo in there if he doesn't fit into some kind of a pattern. I know an awful lot of guys in the last 20 years that got awfully damn mad because they didn't take their kids. And strings they want to, but if the kiddo didn't have it, why, you're just out of luck, period. And now they're very adept at that. They don't have any problems rejecting.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
None whatsoever.
I want you to close with a story about when you went to a ceremony over at BC a year or so ago.
What was that?
When you went to see somebody have a building named after him, and you didn't have a ticket to get in.
Building named after him?
A guy named O'Neill.
Oh, Tip O'Neill. Oh, well, I was, no. I went over there. Everybody was invited to that.
Oh, okay. But
I think what I must have told you was that I was sitting outside or something like that, and I wanted to say hello to Tip.
Oh, okay.
I think that was it. And they were getting inside. They were inside waiting for the procession. All the faculty came down from the Tower building. Tip and Father Monin were in the library. After the procession came down, the people that were sitting on the platform, they came and they sat. So I just walked in through the side door, and the assembled multitude was all there, getting all their ties all squared away and all their robes and so forth and so on. Tip was there. I just walked up and said hello, so shook his hand, gave his wife a kiss. But I'd known him for all my life. I haven't seen him lately.
Yeah. Well, I thought there was something about coming in the back door.
Well, I did come in the wrong door. I did come in where I wasn't supposed to. I wasn't supposed to be there, but that's, there's nothing new about that. We all do that. Like parking in the wrong spot or whatever.
Okay. Well, we appreciate
listen,
you taking all the time.
We enjoyed talking about it. At least we got rid of all that information. And we'll expect you to,
now you can
what does they say, pick up the
gauntlet?
Pick up the gauntlet and carry the ball or what have you.
Well, I'll do the best I can.
But I'll still probably do some of this stuff eventually. I don't know. Well, listen, thanks a lot, and it's quite a fascinating thing, isn't it, huh?
Yeah.
Just run it for a second. Can you run it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say thanks, Greg, and thanks to all my audience for the future, and I apologize for the usual things, my hair, my lack of tie, this old BC shirt that my brother Joe gave me because he was ashamed of me when he when he
get a close up of that. Go ahead, give me the.
As I say, when he was ashamed of me taking me to the Tangerine Bowl, he said you should be dressed properly, so he had to bring me a shirt,
Look at that.
So now I wear this to only on ceremonial occasions such as high masses.
Okay. Well, that was S. Edwin Hart discussing what he knew about the history of the Hart and Hurley clan in Dorchester and in Randolph. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to meet Joe Hart down on Mill Street in Randolph, and he's going to just point out the old, what I call the Hart homestead, and also a couple of the homes which were right next door, which were originally in the Hurley family, which the Hart homestead in Randolph was also in the Hurley family, as Ed mentioned. So I'm going to head over there now, and after that we're going to have a little discussion with Joe Hart about what he recalls of the Harts and growing up in Randolph during the 30s and 40s.
You're on. Okay. Okay, so a little bit more about the Hart and Hurley heritage, which we've been doing the past couple of days with Greg and Brother Ed and Aunt Nellie. So this is the area in Randolph, which in the old days used to call Ward 8, which my uncles used to tell me about. because we're talking way back now, a long time ago. But this is where it all started, right down here in Mill Street. Now we walk down a little bit here and, okay? Okay, so we're down here a little bit now, and Greg will take a picture of the old famous Mill Street sign and the center of Ward 8, like I said, in the old days. This area probably is a lot like any other neighborhood, except that it belongs to us, or it did. In the old days, this was this intersection here was a huge reservoir for fire, and they kept a big basin built under the street here for water. And that's how they used to get water for fire in the old days, if they had any problems like that. But this is the area which we started the Hart and Hurley tradition here in Randolph. Okay, so we'll go up the street a little bit now. All right. This is the old Hart and Hurley homestead, which was built around 1900.
I'm looking right at the front door now. What was the address? 60 Mill Street?
Yeah. Are you on now?
Yeah. All the boys were born then?
Oh yeah, we're all born here, and I think Edwin was born around the First World War, sometime like that. Born right in the house. Yeah. And it has about 4 bedrooms and a beautiful front parlor and a beautiful living room, beautiful dining room, huge kitchen, a big cellar. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
Now that porch right there that used to be screened in.
That was always screened in, yeah, in the summertime. Yeah. That was always a project we had to go through every springtime with Papa, and then in the fall take it down. If you could catch us, we'd have to take it down in the fall, right?
Yeah. Now who's living there now? Mary Hart.
Mary Hart's living there now with Ann and the kids. Right. Down in back on the point. Yeah. Down in back over in here in the old days, in 1921, there used to be a fireworks factory down in there. And 1921, they had a huge explosion and leveled the fireworks factory and blew out all the windows in all these homes along here. And few people, I don't think anyone was killed. It was quite an event. I hadn't been around in those days, but the boys always talked about it in later years. Now the house next door, the blue house, is 56 Mill Street. That's where
let's walk up there.
my mother was born, and the Hurley family, their sisters and my brother were born in this house. Now my mother told us that house was moved up from Pleasant Street in the old days, and quite a while ago now.
Where's Pleasant Street?
Pleasant Street's down off the north there, between North Main and North Street. That's where the Hurleys were born. And then the next house up here is another Hurley house, which was owned by, what did he say? I think it was James Hurley, one of the James Hurleys. Yeah, one of the other brothers.
Now Ed told us a story about how one of these homes is owned. One of the guys never had kids.
Yeah, that's.
Is that this one here?
The third one, yeah.
And the white, and he was saying how that
Oh,
this is the house where every morning he'd go to work.
Right.
And he'd say goodbye to his wife about 8 times going down the street.
Yeah. Everything was very meticulous in that house.
Yeah.
Not being any kids.
Yeah.
But all these houses have big lots in the back. There's plenty of room to look around.
Yeah.
Kids always had a hell of a time in this area. Growing up, there's always lots to do.
Now this other house down the end here, right here.
The green one?
Yeah, the green one. Now that was a Hurley house at one point too?
I don't think that was.
No? And this was the early estate back in the early...
Yeah, back before the turn of the century, naturally.
Yeah.
Way back. Hi.
Here's one of the current residents. Let me just give you a view all the way down Mill Street there, down the hill. And,
Now, all these families have all changed now. There aren't any people here now that were here when I was growing up. All the families have moved out. Some of the names down here are all Randolph people, the Goods and the Forests and the Johnsons and the Walshes and the Tuckers. And my cousins live down the street, the Hurley family, another Uncle Leo, they live down the street a little way. So they were always around the neighborhood, but
yeah.
it really was a great, a real old style town, country town. There's always plenty of kids to play with, and a lot of action on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings after Mass and things like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Randolph names on this street as you go down further. Okay?
Okay, so we're gonna head back to.
We're going to go
to your
down the
house
road a
and-
little bit.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
All right. Well, here we are back.
We're in Avon now, and we're talking with Joe Hart, who was the youngest son of the Harts of Mill Street in Randolph. And what we're going to talk about is just basically what it was like. Ed couldn't give us a real picture of what things were like during the 30s and 40s because he was away at school, and then he got married, and he wasn't living at home. But we were hoping Joe Hart could give us some of the details. And just basically, Dad, you were born in 1925.
Okay. So, well, my memories go back probably, I can remember the 1920, I can remember about 1929, 1930 when they built the new St. Mary's Church. That's probably how far I go back in that. But I'll give you a little rundown about the boys and my older brothers. Because Edwin was always a professional student, he was always in school or going somewhere, going here and there, but I always remember him as being probably the leader, especially at the dinner table. He always sat in the same place, which is the opposite side of the table from myself. And he, among the rest of them, they all had to give me 5 slaps in the back of the head every mealtime because they went by me to get in their seats. But anyway, Edwin went off to Boston College. I don't remember the high school days. He went off to Boston College. He always seemed to be on the run, going here or going there. And I can remember we also had a different kind of relationship as he was going to be a school teacher. And lo and behold, I wound up with him as my teacher when I was in high school, sophomore in high school. We had a very tremendous relationship for that year. And you could say that I passed because I knew somebody. But anyway, Edwin was a great older brother. And then my older brother John, who unfortunately, had passed away in 1946 in an automobile accident, so to speak. But he was a little bit different than Edwin. He went to Boston Trade School, and he was always very mechanically inclined, and he was always the big helper around the house with all the problems that you have in a household as far as repairing things like that. And he graduated from Boston Trade School in 1933, and he was, I remember he was a captain in the schoolboy parades. When they used to have this military group in there that all the high schools in Boston had at that time. And John was a captain in that. And we always had to go in there every year to the schoolboy parade to see Brother John march. My father and mother would take us all in. But anyway, he, in the later years, well, before he went out to work, he worked for Railway Express in the city there. He was always a tremendous help to my mother and father. And after a while, we got out in the world working. He used to take my mother on trips to Florida and trips to Maine and places like that. He was a great person that way. And he was a great racing fan. He used to go out to the Indianapolis racetrack every year. Always take that trip out there. And he was a great hockey player. He used to play down behind Powers' house there on North Main Street, where they had a great outdoor rink. The fellows did all the work, kept it going, and they had their own lighting system. And John was quite instrumental, I understand, in setting up the old Model T engines to keep the lights going. This is a long time ago, 1935, 36, around in there. And I used to beg them to take me down there at night, you know, to watch them play. But my mother always says, too late, but I managed to sneak down there, watch them play hockey. But they had a big amateur league around here in those days, Holbrook and Randolph, and they went as far as way to Worcester to play hockey in those days. So John was a tremendous guy. And then Leo was always a good sportsman. He was a great hockey player also. He went to, I think he went to Random High School, Norfolk Aggies. But he was always on the go too in those days. He used to work over to Rolf's farm right across the street here in the florist shop. And he was a little bit older than I was, so I didn't really have too much contact with Leo in those days. But we did have a great relationship. Leo lives down in South Weymouth now with Alice and the family. And Francis was next. Francis went to Randall High School, and he was always very helpful around the house, helping my mother. He was a great aid to my mother also. He went into the Navy young. He went in the Navy about 1938, so he kind of disappeared off the scene, as you might say.
He went in the Navy just...
He went in the regular Navy in 1938, right?
Not in anticipation of the war or anything.
No, he just volunteered in the Navy. Jobs were a little scarce in those days, so he went in and tried the Navy out.
Yeah.
And he did, I think he had about 12 years before it was all through. But he was on the Oklahoma just prior to the Pearl Harbor, so he's quite fortunate that he got transferred off of that.
The Oklahoma was sunk, right?
Yeah, right. The Oklahoma was sunk at Pearl Harbor. Francis got off that shortly before that happened. And then he spent the rest of the time in the war. He spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia, Genshire, and places like that. And then he got married, he moved to Florida, lived down there, and then now he's finally out in California, and he always liked California, so he's out there with his son Stephen. He's retired. Used to work for the post office in later years. And then there was Richard, my next to me. Richard and I always had our battles down through the years, but
He went to BC High, right?
yeah, Richard went to BC High.
Yeah.
He was did a good job at BC High.
Yeah.
He was a very smart guy.
Yeah.
And then he, shortly right out of high school, he went to the Navy and tried out for pilot training and did pretty well, but the war was getting over, so they cut back on those guys. So Dick spent the rest of the year at sea on the Johnny Hutchins. That was the destroyer escort.
So how many brothers were in the service during the war at once?
Well, there's four of us in the service altogether. Leo was in also. I didn't mention that, but he was in too.
Yeah.
And,
And you all got out roughly around the same time?
we all get out. I get out February 46. Right, they all come in. Dick was a little bit late on me.
Yeah.
But everybody else got up at the same time. And then we had my kid sister Elizabeth, who came to us and lived with us. She was a tremendous addition to the family. She was very helpful to my mother. Again, and, she lives down the street now with her six children down the O'Connor compound, 187 Mill Street.
How you've always told me stories about when you were in the war and everything like that. You were in where? The Solomon Islands and...
Oh yeah, I was out in the
Different
Pacific,
places like
South
that.
America, and then out in the South Pacific, China, Japan, and the Aleutian Islands, and all those places, you know.
Yeah.
The Marianas and all that.
Yeah.
And I was also very fortunate in my naval service. I didn't encounter too many problems. So.
Yeah. Now, Ed really couldn't give me a lot of details, but he was talking about, well, I was trying to get him to tell me about all the things that your father was doing during the Depression. He had like 4 or 5 different jobs. And
Oh yeah, the Depression years were tough. I really didn't feel it myself, but my father was very, very busy in those years. Like I was telling Gregory, I was telling you yesterday that I can remember when he used to run a cab. He had a cab up between uptown and the railroad station. Plus, in those days, the railroad station was a very, very busy place and a vital part of the community, because that's how everybody got to work in town. It was the train. And then we also had the mail contract. We used to pick up the mail from the trains every morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then on top of that, he had the school bus contract for many, many years. Then that was his main occupation in those days.
What, driving a school bus?
Driving the school bus, yeah.
Yeah.
He had his own school bus.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you also, we used to go down in the morning at Christmas time to the station and pick up the mail, fill up the school bus with all the sacks, and drive up to the post office, unload all the sacks. We were king of the hill in those days. Two or three of us were scrambling around the school bus, loading it up, and making the great march uptown. And also he did a lot of singing in the churches in the area. He was a great tenor, real great singer. He used to sing every morning up at every Sunday morning at St. Mary's, 11:30. Rose Hand was his accompanist on the organ. It was a regular scene in those days.
Charlie's mother?
No, Charlie's in his family somewhere there, yeah.
So he was always,
Yes, he sang at all the wakes, the weddings, and all those things. He used to sing on the shows, all the local variety shows, and he did some professional work in Boston in the early days, I guess, probably way back in the 20s. He was quite talented. And our house was always filled with music. It was Sunday morning while he's rehearsing, getting ready for church, and he was always clearing out his voice and checking his slippery arms, if you know what those are. Those are little tablets that singers use to keep their throats clear.
yeah.
But he'd do a lot of rehearsing there on Sundays. There was a lot of music in our house. And Edwin played the piano, Leo played the piano, John played the guitar, and
What'd you play?
I played basketball, I think. Too much basketball.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a real full life growing up. Real full, very church-related, orientated, things like that. Served on the altar for many years. Met a lot of great priests, a lot of great nuns. Came into our parish for Sunday school.
Tell me about your mother.
My mother,
Fanny.
Fanny.
Who called her Fanny?
Well, I didn't dare call her Fanny when I was young, but she got a little bit old. She couldn't defend herself. I could call her Fanny then, but
Yeah.
oh, she was a great homemaker, hell of a cook, right? Saturday afternoons all the baking was done for the week.
Yeah.
All the baking was done, and then Sunday morning we were always getting ready for the big dinner. It's right after Mass. The big dinner would be always ready. You can relax Sunday afternoon. During the week, we always had 3 meals a day, every day. We didn't miss one. I haven't missed any since. But Fanny was a warm, wonderful woman.
She never worked or anything like that?
No, she never worked, no. She never got too angry at us either. She was a good Christian woman.
Yeah. And all the kids were born in the house, right?
Oh, yeah. Everybody was born right upstairs. Everybody was upstairs then.
Do you remember you don't remember any grandparents or anything, right?
No, all the grandparents had passed on by the time I came along. I think Grandmother Hart was the last. She probably died in 1927 or something. I don't remember now.
Yeah. But you had some aunts that used to
Oh yeah, my mother's
keep you busy.
my mother's sister, Helen, Nellie we used to call her. She was a great hell of an aunt. She was kind of a professional gal. She was an executive secretary to some big concerns in town. But she was always come visiting on the weekends, holidays and all that. She really revved up the pace, you might say, with all her thoughts and ideas and
Ed said he
future
used
for
to-
the boys and all that.
Yeah, she used to come and like on the weekends, and everybody get all excited, and she'd be coming over.
Oh yeah, she always brought candy with her. We always asked her when she come in the front door, how long are you gonna stay? We were always looking forward to her company.
Yeah.
And then I had another aunt, Sister Mary Edwin, she was in the Sisters of St. Joseph, and she was in the convent for many years, and she was a Sister Superior down in the old Train Street School for girls there. They call it the Daily Industrial School, down on Train Street in Dorchester. And she was the sister superior there for a good many years. She's actually passed on. She was a great friend of Cardinal Cushing's in the early days.
Now, who,
And,
which aunt had the place down the beach?
Well, that was Aunt Nellie, Aunt Helen.
Yeah.
That was the, down in Humrock, they had a cottage right on the ocean down there. And Aunt Nellie used to be in charge of that operation. And we'd get down there and sleep right out in the porch, right out in the open air, all during the summer or specific times of vacation, they might say. We spent a lot of our younger years down there. Nothing like living right in the ocean. Hear the waves coming in and being ordered around by Sister Mary Edwin and my Aunt Helen. Which was practically an all-boy operation, so they had to be real stern with us, you know.
Yeah. Now, Ed was saying that your father was, at some point he was a sailor, so that's kind of where...
Oh yeah, I guess in his early days we did have some photos. I don't know where they are now, but he used to sail on these sloops, you know, these 40, 50 sloops.
These were
50
sailboats as opposed to...
Sailboats, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to crew on those boats when he was a young man. Down out of Holland, Marblehead, and Gloucester, and places like that.
So, I guess they call them like coastal schooners or something, or...
Oh no, these were sloops. They weren't schooners. These are kind of similar, quite similar to the racing schooners, sloops, I guess.
Yeah.
But he always worked for a wealthy guy. They had these beautiful racing boats.
That's right. Ed was saying that he kind of kept the boat for a guy,
Yeah.
and for the most part he maintained it himself and
Yeah.
used it whenever he wanted it. But that's kind of how you got involved with hanging around by the water all the
Oh
time.
yeah, we did. We hung around. We were always down by the water.
Yeah. How did your father end up in Wareham, or did he have some...
Well, Wareham. Oh yeah, that's the Wareham connection. Well, back in the 30s, they had a Girl Scout organization in Randolph. Mrs. American was the leader of that. She lived down in Warren Street. So in the summertime, my father, the school bus wasn't doing anything, so Mrs. American got a hold of him, and they used to start taking the Girl Scouts down to Wareham. And I guess the Americans had a piece of property there and donated to the Girl Scouts or whatever. They used it anyway, and they used to go down there camping. In the summertime, they'd camp out down there, and Papa would bring them down, back and forth, in the bus or whatever. And he became, he liked the area. It was very quiet down there in those days. So that's how we get involved going down to Wareham.
Huh.
Now, of course, it's all built up down there now.
Yeah. That was, I never knew how you ended up down there.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Mrs. American, she was a great woman. She really did an awful lot for the Girl Scouts in those days. In fact, they gave Papa one of those gold star pins they give him. I don't know the exact name, but an award for, helping out the Girl Scouts in those days.
Now, did you get to know any Hart cousins or aunts and uncles?
Odd cousins?
Or
Well, we have my uncle Pat. He lived out in Arlington, and they were my cousins in Arlington. We didn't see too much of them because they lived so far away. Well, it was far away in those days. Growing up, like we saw them, not too much.
Yeah.
So, hot cousins. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
I wasn't sure if you...
Yeah, we were really Hart and Hurley orientated in those days. The Hurleys were down the street with I think there was eight other Hurleys, and 4 boys and 2 girls, or 6 boys and 2 girls, something like that. I can't remember. But we hung around a lot together. The age group was quite similar.
Yeah.
So after they moved off to Mill Street, they moved down to Roll Street, and of course we'd make the trek down through the woods over the railroad tracks, and we'd get out and bother Aunt Josie for a day or so, right?
Yeah.
And between the 4 Harts, the youngest, we'd be down there and have dinner down there, and there'd be about 4 loaves of bread on the table. I'll never forget it. A couple of pounds of butter, and it looked like a dinner at Lantana's, I guess. It was always a great time.
Now, Give me a list of the cousins and who goes with who as far as their parents, you know what I mean? In other words,
Oh, yeah.
John Hurley and,
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, John Hurley, the undertaker, his father was Joe Hurley, which he was my mother's brother. It was John and Grace and Helen. And they lived up on South Main Street. Like I said, their father had the undertaking business up there. That was Joe Hurley, that was my mother's brother. And then William Leo Hurley, he was my mother's brother. They lived on Mill Street. That was Josie and Leo. And they spent most of the time, they moved down onto Roll Street, that's where they spent many years there. And in fact, they just recently sold that house. So,
you had what, you had two uncles, well they were Hurley